The Royal Game of Ur is a two-player race board game that was first played in ancient Mesopotamia during the early 3rd millennia BC. That's 5,000 years ago. And the game was popular across the Middle East, and boards for playing it have been found in locations as far away from Mesopotamia as Crete and Sri Lanka. It's related to another ancient game known as the Game of 20. And the Game of Ur received its name because it was rediscovered by English archaeologist Sir Leonard Woolley during his excavations of the Royal Cemetery at Ur between 1922 and 1934. And since then, more copies of the game have been found across the Middle East. In fact, 4 game boards bearing a very close resemblance to the Royal Game of Ur were found in the tomb of King Tutankhamun. And these boards came with small boxes to store dice and game pieces, and many had Senate boards on the reverse side so that the same board could be used to play either game and just had to be flipped over. Now, the game was popular amongst all social classes, and a graffiti version of the game was carved with a sharp object, perhaps a dagger, and was discovered on one of the human-headed winged bull gate sentinels from the palace of Sargon II in the city of Khorsabad. The Game of Ur eventually acquired divinatory significance, and cuneiform tablets provide vague predictions for the player's futures if they landed on certain spaces, such as "you will find a friend," or "you will become powerful like a lion," or "you will draw fine beer." Seemingly random events, such as landing on certain squares, were interpreted as messages from either ghosts of deceased ancestors, the gods, or even a person's own soul. While the rules were unknown for millennia, curator Irving Finkel of the British Museum was able to decipher a cuneiform tablet that contained, and examinations of the discovered game show that the game and its rules changed over time. It's eventually thought that the game either evolved into backgammon or was eclipsed in popularity by backgammon. Now, members of the Jewish population of Kochi, India, were still playing a recognizable form of the Game of Ur, which they called Ayasha, up until the time they started immigrating to Israel in the 1950s. And the Kochi version of the game had 20 squares, just like the original Mesopotamian version, but each player had 12 pieces rather than 7, and the placement of the 20 squares was slightly different. Irving Finkel was the person that kind of set what the official rules of the game are, but there are a number of interpretations and reinterpretations of it, so I'm just going to go with one of the common ones here. Now, it's played on a board of 20 squares. They're arranged in 3 rows of 8 with 4 squares cut away, and 5 of the squares are marked. The board can be thought of as in 3 distinctive sections: a large block, a small block, and the bridge between them. Usually each player starts the game with 7 pieces in hand and the board's empty. And each player has 4 pyramidal dice with 4 corners. 2 corners are marked, and when throwing the dice, the score is the number of marked corners pointing upwards, with none signifying a score of 4. Players decide at random who begins, and the path of a player's piece starts on his side of the board in a large block at the square nearest the bridge. The piece moves towards the corner with the rosette before moving to an adjacent square on the middle row and continuing till it crosses the bridge. Now, once it crosses the bridge, it continues on until it reaches the end of the board, and then it moves to the rosette that's on the small block on the player's side. And from this point, it's borne off the board. Each player throws their dice, and for each marked corner that comes up, that's the number of spaces they can move one piece. And if none of the pieces are in play, then they have to enter a piece on the first, second, third, or fourth square of the board according to the score on the dice. If there's pieces already on the board, then instead they may move one of their pieces along its path by the number of squares indicated on the dice. Now, anytime a player rolls and ends their move on a rosette, they're able to re-roll again and make another move. They can do this as many times as they land on rosettes. A piece has to bear off the board on an exact throw. For example, if a player's piece sits on the final rosette of the path, a 1's required to bear it off. If it's on an adjacent square, then a 2 is required to bear it off. And only one of the player's pieces can sit in a square at once. Pieces cannot sit together in the same square. In other words, this has stacking rules. If the roll of the dice gives no valid move, for instance it's 0, then the turn is lost and the opponent's turn begins. If a player lands on an opponent's piece, that piece is removed from the board and it has to begin its journey all over again. If a piece is sitting on a special mark square, that's the rosettes, the opponents cannot land on it. The first 4 squares in a piece's path are safe, as the opponent's pieces never land there. And the last 2 squares in a player's path are also safe, as the opponent can't land there either. Now, the first player that can bear all their pieces off the board has won the game. Now, because the rules are a little bit incomplete, strategy is real dependent on the version that you're playing. And it's important to know the probabilities of getting particular throws on the dice. The chances of getting a 1 are 3 and 8, and similar for a 2. The chances of getting a 3 are 1 and 8, and the same for a 4. Therefore, a piece 3 or 4 squares ahead of an enemy is not as vulnerable as a piece 1 or 2 squares ahead. I like to avoid being 2 squares ahead of the opponent. Obviously, landing on rosettes gives you extra moves, and notice in the game that the protected squares are 4 squares apart, so a roll of 4 can let you go from one protected area to the other. A good strategy is to gather as many pieces as possible in the starting row before setting out any further, as they're safe from capture. And once a piece enters the middle row, then you've got to progress just as quickly as possible, either to the first protected square, or if you miss that, across the bridge to the small section of the board. Pieces on the small section of the board are often safely left standing for a turn or two if no enemy is immediately behind them. And this is a good time to attend to other priorities, such as capturing enemies or moving other pieces out of danger. The most advantageous place on the board is this central protected square. A piece sitting there is safe, and it's in a good position to capture enemy units as they move past, and you'll generally want to keep this square for as long as possible. So in order to win the game, probably the two things you want to do is either land on an opponent and knock them back, or land on a rosette and get an extra move forward. Okay, to make the Royal game, you're going to use these blocks. You can usually find these at toy stores, or you can find them online. Look in the infant or toddler sections, and they used to have them at Toys R Us when Toys R Us was around, but I think Walmart sells them also. So just look online for building blocks for little kids. They're about, about an inch by an inch by an inch. Anyway, you got 16 of them, and we are just going to use some hot glue. Put a little bit on there, and make some sets of 4. We want 2 sets of 4. I love the smell of hot glue. Okay, that's not quite square. That's okay. It'll work fine. Okay, and then spread them around a little bit. And you know what? These guys aren't completely square. Soft still. Okay. There you go. And that's all there is to it. There you have built a Royal Game of Ur board. Now we'll go ahead and hit it with some black spray paint and then get ready to paint it up. Now, one thing I have noticed is this tends to break pretty easy. So what I've done is I've just taken a skewer and broke it and sharpened it with a utility knife on each end. And I'm going to put that in there, and hold on a sec, let me get my other glue gun, and I am going to put a generous amount of glue here, and I've also poked a hole here, and put those two together, make sure I get it right side up, and then hold that in place for just a few. Okay, now then we are ready to apply some paint, and I'm going to use a blue to kind of simulate the lapis lazuli. You can paint it any way you like. 4 coats of blue to get this to look good, but I think we finally got to that point. So let's start making the top. So I'm going to start with some white, and I'm not a great artist, so I'm going to just try to cheat a little bit. You can make all the little eyes and all the things that this would normally have on it, but I'm not going to be quite that fancy. I'm just going to make use some little dots here. And I've got a blue, and I've got a brown. And I'm going to use those two colors with Q-tips. And then I've got a burgundy that I'm going to use for my flower designs, the ones that are those spaces where you get to roll again. I'm using a deep burgundy. Here's our finished game. Now, I'm using D4 for our dice, and generally, instead of using the side with the little mark on it, I'll just say a 1 or 2 counts as the mark. I also made these little guys here. They're just some wooden woodsies that I got at the hobby store, and I just found a couple little sticky rhinestones to put on each one just to give it kind of that jeweled look. Anyway, I think it could maybe be a little bit more professionally painted. It looks a little rough, but then again, it's a pretty old game, so maybe it's kind of supposed to look that way. So that's what I got from making it. Now let's show you guys how to play it. So for playing this game, I use this royalur.net website. I think it's a pretty fun site, and I'm not like associated with it or anything. It doesn't have any ads or anything. But it does a pretty nice setup here. So let's go ahead and play. I'm going to go ahead and roll. And I get a 2. And my opponent rolls and got a 0, so they can't do anything. I get to go again, and I'm going to fill this area up. Oh, I should have gone for my second roll there. You know, that was a mistake. Okay, 3. I'm going to move. He moves 1. 3. I'll move another one into the safe zone. 2. Okay, he'll get a 2, yeah. They always do. I swear this thing cheats. Okay, so I go ahead and go to the rosette. I get a second move. Now my 3, I'll go ahead and put it in the safe zone. He gets a 2. And he's zipping down there. Now, I'm pretty safe right now going into the center, so I'll go ahead and do that. And then I get nothing. Okay, well, that puts me in a little more danger. If he gets a 3, he got a 3, and he'll get a 2. Nope, yeah, he got a 2. So yeah, I tell you, this thing cheats. Got a 1, so I get a roll again. Got a 3. He gets a 2, and got another 1. So now I'm filled up in the safe zone, and he works his way off the board. That 1's fine, and 2, so I'll go ahead and move here 2 and get that other roll. Now I can move this guy here. Okay, I get a 3. It's kind of a dangerous place. This, I'm a little too close right now, so I'm going to do it. He'll roll a 2. Watch it. Oh, he didn't. He rolled a 4. Now he'll roll a 2. Nope. Okay. I roll a 1. I think I'm going to go here. Okay. Just the odds are better of him getting a 2 than a 1, so I get another 1. Move it here. There's his 1. Okay, 1. I'll move here. And he got his 2. I'll move 2 here to get the rosette. And I get a second 1. I can move here. Let's see, he either gets a 1 or a 3. I'm going to move here. There's his 3. Oh, he went off the board. Okay. Another 1. Okay. Yeah, I don't have much choice there. There we go. And 1, 3. You can see he's knocking me back. Okay, I roll again. Now I got a 1, so I'll get a re-roll. A 3. Move here. Okay. A 3. We'll knock him back. There's his 2. He always gets a 2 when I'm there. Okay, well, I got the center, so that helps a little bit. I get a 2. That's another one. And I get a 1. Okay. I can get a 1 here. He's already borne 3 off, and I'm still stuck trying to get one single 1 off. That's the only thing I can do. Okay. Now he'll roll a 2. No, he didn't. All right. Okay, I got a 2. Got to get out of there. And I rolled a nothing, so now he'll roll a 1. Nope, 3. Now he'll roll a 1. There he goes. Boop. Okay, I got my 1. Now here's this case where I have a little bit of time, so I'm going to move him forward so I don't get a... Yeah, you got that 2, because you're most likely to get a 2. We'll go with our 3. Okay, and then our 3 to get off the board. Okay, now he's safe. I'll roll my 3. Roll a 3. And we roll a 3. I'm chasing him off the board here. Get a 1 here. Get a 2 here. Get a 2 down here. Wow. These are moving. 2 there. And we'll get our 1. We'll get him off there. Okay, there's a 1. And this is at medium level. I've never really played this at hard because the medium always seems to beat me, so. I should have probably tried to chase this guy more. Oh. Okay, now then, I'm free to move down the board here, but I've got to move these 4 down. He's only got to roll a 1, so. Okay, he rolled a 4. There's his 1. And there's his 1, and that would be the game. So that is Royal Game of Ur. It's pretty fun to play, really. So if you have an opponent, it's a lot more fun playing against a person than a computer, but they probably don't cheat like the computer does. Anyway, that's what I've got this week. So hopefully that's an old game. If you like these older games, like these ancient games, then let me know and I can make more of these videos. So that's what I got. Thanks. Goodbye.